The screaming started before they'd even unpacked. Derrick froze, one foot still on the truck bed, a box of old records in his hands. From the thick woods behind the cabin came a sound that didn't belong in the world of the living. A shriek, long and cracked, like a dying animal dragged through gravel. Then, silence. Not even birds. "Did you hear that?" Derrick asked, his voice tight. Logan stood at the edge of the porch, one hand on the doorknob, the other holding a six-pack. If that's a coyote, it needs an exorcism. They tried to laugh it off, but the noise echoed in both of them long after it faded. The cabin was ancient, pine boards weathered to gray, windows foggy with age. It sat at the very edge of Black Ridge Reservation, deep in the Montana woods. They'd found it through a friend of a friend, a cheap place to escape, to write, to be alone. But the locals had been less than welcoming. The woman at the gas station had just stared when Logan mentioned the cabin. "You're not from here, are you?" she'd asked, dead-eyed. "We're just renting for the fall," Derrick had said, smiling like that would change anything. She leaned in. "If you hear whistling at night, don't answer it. Don't speak to it. And never, ever open the door." Logan had laughed all the way back to the truck. But now, standing in the unnatural silence, even he wasn't grinning. That night, the wind scratched at the windows like nails on old glass. The trees creaked. Floorboards groaned above them, even though the attic was locked shut. Derrick couldn't sleep. Around 2:13 a.m., he heard whispers outside. At first, just a murmur, like two people having a quiet conversation beneath the window. Then one of them said his name. Derrick. He shot up in bed, heart pounding. Logan's room was across the narrow hall. He should wake him. He should. The whisper came again, clearer now, not just his name. "Come outside. We need to talk. It's cold out here. Derrick. Help us." He stumbled backward, hitting the dresser with his hip. Outside the window, in the moonlight, stood a figure. Too tall. Too still. Its arms hung at its sides and its head lolled slightly like it was broken at the neck. It was smiling. Not like a person, like a jackal wearing a man's skin. Derrick ran to Logan's door and pounded on it. "Logan, man, open up." The door flew open. Logan's face was pale, eyes wide. "You heard it too?" he asked. They sat up the rest of the night with knives and flashlights, jumping at every creak and gust of wind. By dawn, the figure was gone, but in the dirt outside the window were bare footprints, dozens of them, circling the cabin, some small, like a child's, others large, clawed, and one set that looked wrong. The heel was on the wrong side, as if someone had turned their foot completely backward. By the third day, sleep deprivation started eating at them. They tried to rationalize it. Maybe they were just anxious. Maybe the mind plays tricks when you're isolated. But neither could explain why all the mirrors in the cabin fogged up at the same time, or why Logan had found long black hair under his pillow when both of them were clean cut. Derrick had started pacing. He kept checking the locks on the doors and windows, over and over, as if each click might keep something out. The figure outside the window hadn't come back, but Derrick swore he could still hear it at night. Talking, laughing. Not out loud. Inside. It was like someone whispering just behind his thoughts. Something else trying to speak through his own mind, borrowing his memories, twisting them. One night, he jolted awake in the armchair near the fireplace, unsure when he'd fallen asleep. The fire was out. The room was pitch black, but someone was breathing, loud, wet, and ragged, just a few feet from him. "Logan?" he whispered. The breathing stopped. A voice, not Logan's, rasped, "You let us in, Derrick." The flashlight on the table wouldn't turn on. He ran upstairs in total darkness, crashing into walls, hands searching for anything solid, real, human. Logan was in the corner of his room, curled up, rocking. He was muttering something over and over. "Don't whistle. Don't whistle. Don't whistle. Don't let it know you see it." Derrick grabbed his shoulders. "What the hell is happening to us, man?" Logan looked up. His pupils were huge, black voids. "I saw myself outside last night," he said. "Not like a dream. I looked out the back window and I was out there, staring up at me. Same hoodie, same face, but smiling, too wide, like it had borrowed me." The next morning, Derrick woke to find Logan standing motionless in the hallway. Just standing, eyes wide open, skin pale, mouth slightly open like he was mid-sentence. "Logan?" he asked. Nothing. He shook him, hard. Logan gasped like he'd just been pulled out of deep water. Then he started screaming, uncontrollably. He screamed until his throat gave out. All Derrick could get out of him was this: "I dreamed something pulled me out of my own body, and I watched it walk around wearing me." They tried to leave that afternoon, tossed their stuff in the truck, drove until the trees blurred. No cell service. The GPS kept glitching. Roads they'd never seen appeared on the map, even though there was only one dirt road in and out. After 4 hours of driving in what should have been a 20-minute trip, they stopped at a fork in the woods. There was a mirror nailed to a tree, cracked, old, reflecting something that wasn't the forest behind them. Derrick saw himself, but not himself. In the mirror, his reflection was grinning, and behind it, a tall, shadowed figure with joints bent the wrong way, crouching just behind his shoulder. Then the mirror shattered on its own. That night, they found themselves back at the cabin, unpacked, lights on, fire burning. It was like they had never left. They didn't talk much anymore. Logan had stopped eating. He sat by the front window most of the day, staring out into the trees like he was waiting for something, or trying to remember something he'd forgotten. Derrick started keeping a journal to track time. Every day felt like it folded into the last, like they were trapped in a loop, and whatever was out there wanted them confused. The calendar on the wall always said October 1st, no matter how many sunrises passed. One night he woke to find the journal already filled. Every page, every line, his handwriting, only he didn't remember writing it. The last entry simply read, "He's not Logan anymore." That morning, Logan wouldn't come downstairs. When Derrick finally went up, he found the bedroom door wide open. Logan was standing in front of the mirror, shirtless, skin covered in long, thin slashes. Not bleeding, just opened, as if something had drawn symbols into him with a scalpel. When Derrick spoke, Logan turned his head too slowly, like he'd forgotten how a human neck was supposed to move. "What are you doing, man?" Derrick asked, choking on the words. Logan's face twitched. Then he said, too calmly, "Do you ever wonder what part of you is still yours?" That night, Derrick dreamed of fire. He was lying in the woods, his body covered in a thick pelt, like an animal carcass had been sewn onto him. He couldn't speak, only growl. Couldn't move without bending the wrong way. His vision was wrong, sideways, predatory. He stalked something through the trees. It was him. He was running. The thing wearing him was hunting the real him, and he could feel both sides of the chase at once, predator and prey, one mind split into two skin suits. He woke up screaming into a pillow. Logan was sitting at the foot of his bed, watching him. He didn't blink for nearly a minute. Then he said, "You're not waking up. You just think you are." The next day, they finally got cell signal. 1 bar, enough to load a voicemail. Neither of them had called out, but Derrick's phone said there was a missed call from Derrick's own number. He played the message, a voice that sounded like his, but distorted, gasping through static. "It's already inside. If you're hearing this, it's too late. Don't let it take your name. That's how it starts. If you forget your name, it can wear you." The message ended with the sound of bone snapping. Derrick stopped writing his name after that. Every time he tried to say it out loud, something scratched at the back of his throat. Like speaking it would summon something, like he'd already forgotten it. That night, the cabin filled with the sound of whistling. Not human whistling, more like wind pushed through a shattered throat. It circled the house. It scratched the walls. At 3:12 a.m., something knocked on the front door. 3 times. Knock, knock, knock. Then a voice, soft, like a child. "Derrick? Please let me in. I'm cold. I forgot my face. Can I borrow yours?" He turned every lock. He didn't sleep. And in the morning, Logan was gone. No footprints, no note. Nothing but his shoes left by the front door, still warm. The silence after Logan disappeared was worse than the voices. No footsteps, no creaking floors. Just wind and trees and the low, constant hum in Derrick's ears, like something ancient was coiled inside his skull waiting to wake up. He told himself Logan had just left. Maybe he'd snapped, walked off into the woods and vanished like people do in backwoods horror stories. But Derrick knew the truth. Something had taken him. Something wearing Logan's face was still watching from the trees. He tried to leave. Again, this time on foot. Made it 10 miles south before he hit a rusted chain-link fence with no gate, no signage, just barbed wire and a pile of dead birds at its base. The trees behind it were twisted, different from the ones he came through. Taller, bare, unmoving. He turned back, feeling watched the entire way. And when he made it back to the cabin, his boots were already at the front door, still muddy, still warm, like he'd never left at all. The next night, the voices got louder. They didn't come from outside anymore. They came from inside the walls, from inside him. He'd close his eyes and hear Logan whispering in the back of his head, but it wasn't Logan's voice anymore. It was hollow, wrong. Do you remember your name? Whose skin is that? If you wake up in someone else's body, how do you know you ever existed at all? The mirror in the hallway, the only one he hadn't broken, started fogging up by itself again, and messages began appearing, written in condensation, not all at once, one letter at a time. H-E-L-P. Then later, N-O-T-H-I-M. Then B-E-H-I-N-D. He smashed it. But later that night, the shards still reflected someone standing over his bed, even though no one was there. Derrick hadn't eaten in days. He wasn't sure he could anymore. His body didn't feel like it was his. When he looked at his hands too long, the fingers seemed to stretch, lengthen, recoil from the light. Once, he caught a glimpse of himself in the microwave door. He wasn't smiling, but his reflection was. Then came the worst night of all. He woke to whistling, loud, sharp, slicing the air like broken glass. Then, a voice outside the door. Calm, familiar. Hey man, it's me, Logan. Derrick sat up, heart slamming. I'm sorry I left. It wasn't me. Something got inside. But I fought it off. I'm better now. Let me in. He said nothing. The voice continued. Come on. Don't you trust your best friend? Don't you remember? You said we'd die out here together. A pause. Then, a whisper, pressed right up against the keyhole. I don't think you're you anymore either. He stayed silent. Until sunrise. The door never opened. But in the morning he found muddy footprints across the ceiling, upside down bare human feet walking above his bed. That day, Derrick tried one final thing. He went to the woods, where they'd first heard the scream, and he spoke aloud. What do you want from me? The trees didn't move. The air didn't stir. But something answered, from inside his own mouth. A second voice, one that wasn't his. A name, just a name. That's all. Once you give it up, we can let you go. He bit his tongue until he bled. When he returned to the cabin, there was someone inside, sitting at the table, back to him. Same clothes, same hair. It turned slowly. His own face, his own eyes, smiling. The reflection from the mirror, the not him. It opened its mouth and said, You've been gone a long time, Derrick. You should rest now. Let me take over. Just forget. That's all you have to do. He backed away. Then it said, You already did, didn't you? You forgot your name. He had. He couldn't remember it. Not fully. Not clearly. The journal was missing. The voicemail was gone. All the documents, IDs, insurance cards, license, all gone. Even the Polaroid they'd taken on the first day had changed. It showed Logan, alone, smiling in front of the cabin. Derrick wasn't in it anymore. The man in the cabin, the one wearing Derrick's face, didn't attack. It just waited. Calm, patient, smiling like someone who knew how this story ended. Derrick locked himself in the basement, only to find dozens of notebooks already stacked along the walls, all filled with his handwriting, his words, his memories. Some pages dated years ago, but he'd only arrived a few weeks ago, hadn't he? The dates were wrong. The handwriting changed subtly in each. Some pages described things he'd never done. Others repeated the same line over and over again. You are the dream. The body is taken. The soul is fading. Let go. That night, the forest came alive, not with animals, but with imitations. He saw Logan again, in the woods, and his mother, calling to him, then himself, again. More and more. Different versions of himself. One with a broken leg, limping. Another crawling. One hanging from a tree, swaying gently, neck bent at an impossible angle, still smiling. They circled the cabin, mimicking voices. Memories. Dreams. It wasn't just one demon. It wasn't just a skinwalker. It was a hive. A whole forest of stolen identities. A place that eats people until there's nothing left but their face and the echo of their voice. Inside the house, Derrick's double stared into the fire. He spoke without turning around. There's no going back. You're not the first, Derrick. And you won't be the last. You think you moved here a few weeks ago. You've been dying here for years. Derrick backed away, shaking. You're lying. The double turned slowly. Its face shifted, moment by moment, to show every version of Derrick he'd seen. One grinning, one crying, one peeling off its own skin. Then it said, "You think you're the original. They all do, but the real you never made it past the first night." Suddenly, it clicked. The voicemail, the journal, the mirror messages, they weren't warnings for him. They were from him. Versions of him, already taken, already lost, all trying to stop the next copy from falling into the same trap. But none had succeeded. Not one. The next morning, there was only one man in the cabin. He looked like Derrick. He smiled like Derrick. He even talked like Derrick. And when a new pair of hikers came by later that week, two brothers, just looking for somewhere cheap to disconnect, he was already out on the porch, friendly as ever. "Welcome," he said. "You boys looking to stay a while?" 1 week later, the neighbors heard screams in the woods, but only once. Then silence. The end. Or is it the beginning?